A Look in the Mirror, number 134. Welcome back. Today, we'll be looking at the Gospel of John to see how Jesus made judgmental people look at their own imperfections. So let's get started. John 8:1-11. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning, he went back into the temple courts. All the people came to him, and he sat down to teach them. The scribes and Pharisees, however, brought to him a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before them and said, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. So what do you say?" They said this to test him in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and began to write on the ground with his finger. When they continued to question him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to cast a stone at her." And again he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard this, they began to go away one by one, beginning with the older ones, until only Jesus was left with the woman standing there. Then Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, Lord," she answered. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Now go and sin no more." My thoughts. It should only take a little self-reflection to help truth and grace find their way to the top. The religious leaders had Jesus pinned to the mat on this one, or at least they thought they did. It was a requirement of the Mosaic law to put an adulteress or adulterer to death. Deuteronomy 22:22-24, Leviticus 20:10. Surely this was a sin that required the strictest justice. But there are several things wrong with this situation. First, where's the man? The woman was caught in the very act. The law requires both the man and woman be put to death. That's the initial clue that something fishy is going on here. Second, the Jews were under Roman occupation and law. They were forbidden to execute capital punishment. Hence the reason they had to bring Jesus to Pilate to have him crucified. This was just another attempt to put Jesus in a political headlock between the Jews and the Romans. And lastly, their trickery was quite apparent to Jesus, and he knew they were trying to trap him. They weren't interested in justice or righteousness. They were interested in one thing, getting rid of the person who exposed their hypocrisy. But it all backfired. Jesus, with the wisdom of heaven, puts a counter-move on them that they couldn't squirm out of. He tells them to look in the mirror. He exposes their imperfections publicly, and they slink away with their tails between their legs. The Master, as always, was ready with the wisdom, mercy, and forgiveness to counter anything they threw at him. But notice, too, that Jesus didn't declare her innocent. He didn't wink at her sexual immorality or justify it as though it was just an alternate lifestyle or some degenerative birth defect that she was unable to resist. No, he called it what it was, sin, and he added, "Don't do it again." We as disciple makers need to be careful when using the sharp edges of truth and grace. Truth does not always demand punishment, and grace doesn't always demand tolerance. They must both be applied and taught as a unit, and great wisdom needs to be applied as a brain surgeon would use a scalpel. Just as Jesus did in this situation, this will demand that we first take a long look in the mirror. It doesn't mean not helping a brother get a speck out of his eye, but it does mean removing the log from our own. My story. I'm not often put into situations like this one. Jesus had to navigate the tricky shoals of each party being in the wrong and dealing with both in an appropriate manner. No, mine are either black and white or a matter of preference. Let me explain. There are times when it is absolutely clear to me that a person is in the wrong and I don't address it. Usually it's because I'm afraid. Afraid of losing a friendship or afraid of the backlash it might cause. I'm working on being more loving by being courageous. To let a person walk off a cliff when you know it's there is not very loving. The other side of the coin is when it's not a moral issue, but preference. There are times when I'll weigh in too strongly and I shouldn't. If that person is being told by Jesus to do something different from the way he told me to do it, who am I to judge the servant of another? Romans 14:4. So should I stop making disciples because I don't get it right every time? Ridiculous. As disciple makers, we are learning the art of influencing people the way Jesus did. This takes practice and probably a whole lot of mistakes. We must take the risk of leading even when we know we won't get it right every time. But as leaders, we also need to humble ourselves, be willing to admit our faults, repent, and look to Jesus for the next right thing to do. This is the heavy mantle of disciple-making, and we should bear its burden comfortably. Our action plan. Now it's time for application. Here's some ideas. Pray for wisdom. Listen to the people you are discipling. Are they too harsh or too soft on sin? Do a Bible study with them on the application of grace and truth. Jesus was put into some tricky situations but handled them like the expert disciple-maker he is. Like Jesus, we will enter into some awkward, messy, and even hostile circumstances where the wisdom of God is the only solution. Let's acknowledge our own shortcomings and apply grace and truth appropriately. Organic writing, no artificial intelligence or sweeteners added.